My trip here has been awesome. And first off, just got to say thanks for, opening the doors to this sort of thing. And what I've seen here has been amazing. I've told everybody that sat in front of me from the second I got here, from the second I started dealing with you guys, like that brotherhood, that camaraderie, that, sense of family almost has been there from the start. So yeah, like well done on whatever you guys are doing, because it's amazing to see. Because like I said at the keynote too, like it's not everywhere in the industry. So
I was shocked that you said that, because and I've grown up with APS. It's all I've ever known, but it's such an important part of who we are as a company and who we are as a culture. And I guess take for granted sometimes that doesn't exist everywhere. So it's really great to hear that, and we really enjoyed having you here. It's been awesome.
Cool.
Yeah,
it's like that's what I try to bring to places too, is like a little bit more of a global sense, because some people just don't get to see or hear from all aspects of the trade because they're just really close to what they're doing. So for the linemen that are, they grew up here, their family grew up here, and that's all they've ever known, they might not see that it's not the same everywhere else. And like for the people that are listening as well, because they might have that in the reverse, right? And they do. And those people reach out all the time. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, this brotherhood, this camaraderie thing. Like, it doesn't exist. I've never experienced it. All the guys around me are just in it for the money or whatever, in it for whatever. And they're horrible to be around. I'm like, wow, that's really disappointing. For one, why are you still in the trade? Or two, why don't you seek out areas that do support it? Because they exist. So, yeah. Tell me about your history, your family.
I am born and raised in Arizona, so an Arizona native, and grew up here, grew up in a small town outside of Phoenix. It's, less small now, but it was small at the time. And my dad worked for APS for 33 years. He was in management. He started as an electrical engineer and then was in management, all on the T&D side for his entire career. I never wanted to work for APS. I never wanted to do anything that my dad did. But you graduate college in the middle of a Great Recession and there's not a lot of other job opportunities. And he said, hey, why don't you try this and see what you think, and at least it'll pay enough to get you out of my house. So
every father's dream.
Exactly. I'd moved back in.
You do well, but
he was like, I need you to live somewhere else, and I certainly wanted that as well. So I started we have a program at APS called our Customer Projects team, and essentially they take people and put them in a training class to learn distribution design. And you're the face of the customer, and you're interfacing and doing all the design work and all the distribution design from order to meter set on the distribution side. So I did that program and then fell in love with power and the project management angle of it, and just drive up and down and, similar, right? I've worked with linemen, but you drive up and down still to this day, the highways, and I'm like, I built that billboard, or I designed that billboard, I designed that fire station. My kids all know which ones I was part of. And there's a lot of immediate gratification in that and in the work that we do. And still to this day, I'll travel out of state and be like, well, that's interesting framing. I haven't seen that before. And, just geek out with the power side of it. So it's taken me, I've been with APS now 18 years, and I've worked probably 13 different jobs across the company, and worked in our generation side, but almost exclusively in T&D. It's just, I think there's not another place that you see the fruits of your labor and everybody really comes together, and there's a sense of purpose that I don't think a lot of other industries have. Like when the lights, I always tell the team this, when the lights go out, if you don't get feeling in the pit of your stomach, like I need to do something, I need to help, then you're in the wrong industry. And I always think about, how do I hire for that? And how do I get people to have that feeling? And I don't know how you grow it. And
That's what I was saying to the last group. I've said this quite a bit too. That's why I support like military veterans getting into this trade in this industry, because like, though there's many differences, there's a lot of similarities. Like, usually you're getting into the military because you have that servant heart. Mm-hmm. And that's a big part of it, that brotherhood, feeling, that camaraderie feeling of building something, some sort of culture, just naturally happens in the military. It naturally happens. Like I was talking the other day during this trade, this industry fosters that.
Yeah.
It's primed to foster that. That's why it's like a good fit for that. And it's amazing when you grow up around, I was just gonna say, like when you grow up around like the trade, I was telling the other guys this too, is like, I knew what my father did, obviously. I grew up around it, but it's like when my mom would ask me what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be, do you want to be a lineman? Do you want to be a lineman? My answer was always equivocally no.
Right.
Like, this is no, not interested, not at all. And it was like that one moment where somebody like said, put these on, just climb there, just go up the pole, and then tell me when you're looking down here if it's not what you want to do. Yeah. And the second I got up there, but first I went up and the foreman was like, hey, you've never done this before. You're actually kind of a natural at it. I was athletic, so I was like, okay, climbing was okay. Yeah. I got it. And then I started looking around. I was like, I could do this. This is I'm comfortable up here. This seems fun. And it was like instant. But so that's why I encourage people to try. Yeah. Don't just say no.
Right.
Try it.
Right. Yeah. Right. I think that makes a huge difference. And we've seen that on the military side too. My husband's a Marine veteran. He worked at APS. He doesn't any longer. But, we've definitely seen that's a good angle. And it also teaches you, it teaches you some self-reliance that I think the trades need. Mm. And it also gives you a lot of exposure to difficult conditions, sure. Which is also something, I mean, our linemen work in, and our electricians work in, our substation journeymen, work in 120 degrees. Yeah. And most of the year. And that's really tough conditions. And so, long sleeve FR shirts, I don't underestimate the challenges that they face, certainly being out there in monsoons and haboobs and all the, it's not a snowstorm, but we have snowstorms. Yeah. Not a lot of people realize the diverse climate that we have across Arizona.
I definitely didn't. Another thing is it forces you, being in the military forces you to make decisions, mm-hmm. and make decisions young. And I think a lot of young people are just never forced to make decisions or difficult decisions, right? So you already come into it. When I was an instructor at line school, the vets that we had were just miles past most of the other young people because they just knew how to make a decision. You'd ask them a question, be like, okay, yeah, well, let's go here, let's do this. Whereas the other ones were like, they get all jammed up on, it's like, yeah. So, I don't know, what's your thoughts on that side of it and decision making? Is that a key to getting into, leadership?
I definitely think it's a key to getting into leadership is being able to take not a lot of information, but being able to ask the right questions and get enough information to have confidence in managing the risk and making the decision. Because, you touched on it before, the amount of decisions that our frontline leaders and our foremen have to make every single day, they don't even realize the amount of input that they're taking and then the amount of decisions that they're having to make. And I think what we've really focused on and what has helped with our decision making is focusing on those risk-based decisions, how risky what am I not considering and how risky are these decisions? Because there's some decisions that you can make, did I drink water the day before? That's sure. A decision that you have to make to decide how you're going to show up for work the next day. But there's a very low consequence decision, and it's something that you should just habitually do. But there's other really high consequence decisions that our foremen are making every single day. And so trying to arm them with the skill set to be able to think about what could happen and not, that we talked about the safety culture at APS, and that if not, or not if, but when something happens, what's going to happen and what does that look like?
Yep.
And I think that goes a lot into the decisions that we make and thinking about what is that risk-based decision.
How are you training your leaders, like, to understand the context around that and make better decisions?
We have had a lot of discussion. So I think it starts at the top. We've really determined risk management is one of the key focus areas that we touch on, and we talk about it all the time. And we have risk-based decision moments that we talk about. We emphasize it in our planning meetings, thinking about, what could happen, what other options do we have, what are the consequences of those options. We reinforce when positive risk-based decisions are made. We reinforce those with, sharings, lessons learned. When we maybe miss something, we've had a couple mistakes. It's, don't blame the person. How can we learn from it? And what risks did we not know were there that we need to highlight? I think the biggest thing that I think you can do a big training class, you can do a big rollout of sorts. But to me, the key leadership function when it comes to change is consistency and follow through. And it doesn't take a lot for that, but being a consistent leader, saying the same things, knowing that people know what to expect from you, and then following through with those actions can go a million miles more with change management than, any big rollout plan. And so not to upset any trainers or consultants in the world, I think it comes down to people.
With that side of it, confidence is a big thing. How do you become more confident without being more, arrogant, whatever? Yeah. How do you gain confidence, and how do you step into confidence and walk in confidence?
Well, at least for me, it's a lot of fake it till you make it, and just keep showing up and just keep, even if you get knocked down, you show back up the next day and learn from it. And I think that builds over time. I think a lot of, at least from my experience, because I get that question a lot of you come across so confident, and they're like, oh, well, I'm totally faking it, but I'm glad it comes across that way. But I think there's an avenue of also maintaining that humility and keeping touch on what really matters. And that builds confidence. And that makes you more capable, and consistency around that, and having people that are going to tell you the truth, and are going to tell you see, that was a stupid decision, don't do that again. And that's what I've really found working. I've worked with a lot of different folks at APS across my career. And those are the mentors that I really lean into, are the ones that are not gentle and are going to be like, hey, that was stupid.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. Let's figure it out. And that's really where I've seen the biggest confidence boost is when you finally impress, or you finally prove yourself to somebody that was a big critic. That makes the biggest difference to me.
When I was prepping for that keynote, I came across somebody that was giving advice for prepping for public speaking and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they gave this piece of advice, but I think it works into any sort of leadership, and especially into confidence. The quote was, "A prepared messenger is better than a prepared message." And I think that can really help, make you more confident, is the amount of time or effort you put into trying to be prepared. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be prepared for, if it's your first time doing it, you're not going to be prepared. It's like that new parent, right? Mm-hmm. You can be as prepared as you want. You're not going to be prepared for everything. But, that prepared person is better than,
Yeah.
Anyway, I liked that, and I think it really works good in the confidence.
Yeah, think thinking about the different scenarios and what, and I think both the trades, but also the customer project world that I came up in, I mean, there's no right or wrong way. There's always 9 different ways to do any design, right? And so, taking the time to think about what are the pros and cons of each of this, and how do I get the buy-in from the crew that's going to be working it, and how do I make sure that the customer is going to be happy at the end of the day and it meets our standards and it's going to be safe. I mean, we're building assets that are going to be around for 60 to 100 years. And so how do you're not just throwing away something and thinking about it as
lifetime.
Just something on a piece of paper, right? Like, this has to last a lot longer than me. And I think sometimes we forget that because we're like, we're on to the next job and we're on to the next thing. But, that's what I really like about the power industry in general, and specifically the trade, is there's a pride. There's like a craftsmanship that comes with it. And, we try to instill that in even the design side. When I started, we had a program where you'd get paired with a foreman. And the foreman that I had, everybody called him, I didn't know this so much later, but everybody called him Peter Perfect. And we'd go in the morning, and, I was 22 at the time, young, female, and I go in the morning, and a room full of linemen is intimidating.
Yeah.
And I tell the guys that all the time. I'm like, you sit there and you're gruff and you look cranky and you look mean and you're scary to walk into as a young female. Yeah. And so, now I encourage the guys, like, hey, also come to them. And so what his name was Rick. What Rick used to do is, in the mornings, I'd go in there with my paper, like, here's your job packet. This customer's not happy, this poll, like, here's some things, just give him some nuance. He'd come back at the end of every day into my cube, and he'd sit down, and my paper would be bleeding with all the red lines, and he'd walk me through every single one, and he'd talk about, like, well, this didn't work, and we need to use this spec next time, and you need to do this, and and then the next day I'd go in there again, and he'd come back, and it'd be different red lines. And, he'd always encourage, you didn't make the same mistake, so that's great, but here's some other things. And I learned a ton from that. And we had a great rapport and a great relationship. And, I still look back, and as I've moved up in the organization, trying to foster that between our foremen and our CPRs and trying to make that connection, has been really something that I've always strived to do, because, I think linemen are fortunate to go through an apprenticeship, and that's a privilege, and you learn a ton in those 4 or 5 years. We have a lot of other folks on the engineering side and the other side that don't get that opportunity, and our training program was 9 months long. And so what I'm consistently telling the guys is, you did a 5-year apprenticeship to learn all this. They were in class for 9 months and then kicked out. So help them. Be their foreman too.
I think that's huge. That definitely doesn't exist everywhere. No, I was just thinking about that. My dad used to talk about these designers that he would work with the utility, that they very rarely, sat in the office. They had a hard hat that was just as dirty as the lineman, because they were out in the field staking lines, talking to the lineman, like, okay, why did that pole not work? Why, was it too short? Whatever, just like working through problem solving together. And you're totally right. Like, that designer probably could have built a line just as good as any lineman at the time. And engineers, designers, whatever that exists now, they don't get to do that at all.
Yeah. That's always been something my dad has emphasized, is he was always, when he was an engineer, he was always out in the field and always talking to the guys and trying to understand the hazards and the work and what worked and what didn't. And, that really set him apart. And that was ingrained in me from a very early age, is like, you can't just be, preaching from the pulpit. You have to be out there learning and asking questions and be engaged and be involved.
What other advice do you have for linemen listening on interacting with that person, whether it's designer, engineer, somebody that they're trying to like work on the design side with?
I think the biggest thing is there's standards and there's things that electrically, physically work, and then there's preferences. And so recognizing when it's a preference and when it's a must, and then also communicating why it's a preference. Because sometimes it's a preference because it's easier. And that should be taken into consideration.
Totally.
But if you don't share the why, then they don't know. They just think you're being difficult. And they don't understand why this foreman likes it this way and this one doesn't. And so I think that's really critically important, as well as taking the moment to recognize that you can be scary and so approach them in their environment. But it's also good that you come with, here's why I care. It's safer for me to do it this way compared to this way. Let me show you. And I've never seen any designer that wouldn't want their foreman to be safer.
I love that point. I talked to, this was probably like 150 podcasts ago, but this guy that said what was his name? Martin. Anyway, starting to design safety into design, right? And that's something that a lot of linemen don't realize. If you can give the design team the why, that might be the thing that's going to make everybody safer, because what you're actually doing is you're cutting a corner, but you're just being a natural human being who's trying to like be more proficient at something. But if you could design that corner cut into it, it's going to make it safer for everybody. Yeah. And I saw like that was such an eye-opening moment for me, because like you're trying to hide behind, like, I don't want to give them the reason why I do this because, I'm actually cutting a corner or something. But the design team might need to know that. Yeah. Because it's just going to make you and everyone else safer, because they could design a corner there instead of a right angle or whatever,
We've gotten feedback from folks that are like, all our safety meetings are so field-centric. And so it doesn't resonate with, some of the office folks. But I always challenge, like, field safety starts in the office. And so the office safety meetings are the most critical to be thinking about, well, how are the guys going to set up a truck? And where are we going to put the barricades? And if I put this here and somebody has to come and work it in the middle of the night, is the riprap going to get in the way of the transformer and they're going to have a tripping hazard? And so those are the things that I want to be talking about in the office safety meetings, and not the paper cut or like that happens. But that's what we should be talking about, is how do we design safety for the field in all the work that we're doing to set it up? Even outage planning on the operations side, like, what makes the most sense for how we plan these outages? Can we bin and bucket them differently? Have we thought about what the customer impact is? And, the last thing that guys want is they go out in the field and then all of a sudden all the customers come out because they weren't notified or there was a mistake. And now they're worried about, the customer being mad at them about this, and they're trying to set up the job. And so these are all things that we can design into the process to make it safer for the guys at the pointy end of the spear, as we say.
I love that. If you're going to create that safe space for people to interact in that way, it starts with a culture, a good culture, a culture built on trust. How are you guys building that culture of trust?
I love this question. This is one we've had I've only been in the role for 4 months now. And we've had our 4 focus areas that we're really focused on, and those don't change, right? Like, as a utility, we have to be focused on safety, reliability, customer experience, and risk management. But the stamp that I added to it and what we're working on now is really all of those things happen more organically when you have a foundation of leadership and trust. And so, that doesn't just apply to leaders. That's everybody in the T&D world have to understand that they have the ability to speak up. They should trust their leadership is going to do what they say they're going to do. Their pole buddy's going to do what he says he's going to do. And the leadership at all levels. Like, you don't have to just be a leader by title
Totally.
to do the right thing when nobody's looking. And to me, that's leadership. And so, some of the things, and certainly with our CEO taking over, he's added building trust and building relationships to our key leadership framework. And so it's alignment at all levels. And then I think it's reinforcing communication and that consistency and follow through. Culture change takes time, right? We have a great foundation at APS because, like you said, we really, we've worked together a long time. We really have a sense of like, I care about you as a person, this isn't just a job to a lot of us. This is a purpose. This is something we really deeply believe in. And so that's a great foundation to start with. And then I think it's little tweaks around, making sure that we're consistent in our messaging, and then simple things like follow through. Like, people will make a flippant comment, and good leaders will ask the follow-up question and say, that was interesting, tell me more. Or, wow, I didn't know that, show me how that works. And it takes extra effort, and it means that your days are maybe going to be a little longer. But that, to me, is what the difference maker is, and that's how you build trust in the organization. And then following up, like, I'm constantly, when I'm having conversations, I'm like, let me take a note so I don't forget, because if I don't write it down, I'll completely forget it. There's no way. But like, taking that note and then following up, you would not believe how many people tell me, like, I had no idea that you would come back to me with something so stupid, right? Like,
but it's giving the why. Like, so from the line perspective, like, that's when I've been around linemen with beef, it's because they feel like they're not heard, or they're not given context. We talked about that a little bit on the last pod as well. It's so important to give that context. And that's what that is like, that follow-up question is, hey, I heard you, and here's some context. Here's a why.
Let me understand.
And it's like, okay, now, like, they can't have any beef about it because they got an answer.
Yeah. They can still not like the answer, right?
Sure.
Like, I've had many of those, you don't have to agree with me, but I'm going to tell you with transparency why we made that decision and some of the other things at play. But I think a lot of the decision-making framework that we talk about is providing that context and clarity, providing the psychological safety where people can feel comfortable to challenge that decision, and then giving some guardrails and some things to think about. And really, that, if you give those things, that's how you empower folks to make good, strong decisions.
Do you have to choose, like, some of those things that are brought up as things that you let slip through to help build trust, or not slip through, but like, okay, I guess it's like a humility part on the leader side sometimes to go, okay, no, that was actually a good idea. Let's move that direction or implement what they said. We were wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know or I made a mistake are two of the most powerful statements that leaders can make. And we're all human. We all get up and put our pants on the same way every day. So I think it's important to admit when you're wrong. I think it's really important to get input from others. And, even the bad opinions, even the negative opinions can teach you something about what's going on in the world, what's going on in the culture, what's going on in that particular doc. So there's a lot to that. And I think listening, even the loudest voices, I always probably tend to lean into those because I'm like, they have something to say. And sometimes it's obnoxious, but sometimes there's truth to what they're saying, and sometimes they're the voted mouthpiece. And so listening to that, you don't have to do everything with everything you hear, but at least taking the time to listen makes a huge difference.
There's the big difference between listening and hearing. Mm-hmm. And I learned a lot about listening through podcasting that I didn't know existed. I read a few books on communication, and that one I recommended the other day, I recommend it all the time, from Larry King, called How to Talk to Anyone, Anytime, Anywhere. And that one talked about listening with intent. And that's a good one for, I keep bringing it up for linemen. So whoever like catches it, can catch a hold of that. Listening with intent is a lot different than just hearing you. Like hearing you is like, or listening without intent is like, okay, I'm just trying to formulate another thought. I'm trying to give my opinion. So I'm just like, I'm hearing you talk, but none of it's coming in. But actually giving the person time to say what they're going to say, and then maybe, or maybe not, add an opinion on top of it is huge. Yeah. Listening is such like, it's so crucial.
Yes. Yeah. Marriage will teach you that too. Yeah.
True enough. Maybe you get it the first or second try.
Yeah, exactly.
What separates a leader who plateaus from one who keeps growing?
Curiosity.
Good one.
And self-awareness. So to me, the leaders that I've seen that have continued to grow are ones that realize there's no finish line. You're constantly evolving and growing as a person, and so you should be curious. Things are changing. Things in the industry are changing. Generations that are coming up are changing. The world is changing, and so to think that you are so stuck in the way that things have always been or in a fixed mindset is just asking for a plateau, or you to run into a brick wall that you can't find your way around. And so being curious about everything. Like I love hearing from different people. I'm an avid podcast. I always am listening to podcasts and audiobooks, and you put those books up there, and some of the leaders were making fun of me. They're like, "But you've read every one," and I was like, "Pretty much."
Yeah.
Like,
good.
Yeah, I'm a consumer of leadership, and I'm a student of leadership, and I feel like that's an important part of success. And then the self-awareness piece is like realizing, as part of like you've never arrived, is realizing you need to know how you come across to people, and you need to be willing to hear from your critics as well. Like as you move up in leadership, people become less willing to tell you the truth. And I listened to a podcast on HOP principles, and they were talking about how you get less and less truthful information as you move up in the organization, but you're expected to make more critical decisions with bad information. And so like you have to actively try to get good information, or to keep seeking out those people that are going to tell you, yeah, you totally screwed that up. You did not like perform there, or you missed the mark, or what you said came across this way. And instead of, that can be hurtful. And instead of like going behind the corner and be like, I failed. It's like, okay, so tell me more. What could I have done differently? And how does that look? And then showing up the next day and trying harder. I think that's what makes the difference between leaders that start somewhere and get there.
Also curiosity promotes like action on things that are difficult, or like it's challenging, right? Yeah. Curiosity breeds challenging scenarios. Like it puts you in a scenario like, okay, if I'm curious about this, I'm going to go this direction, but maybe I've never done that before. But it puts you in that scenario now that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I like
that. The edge, I forget where I heard it, but good leaders live on the edge of comfort. So they're constantly pushing where if you I do say this about my career because my career has moved into very different roles, and I've always leaned towards areas where I don't know. And so I'm like, well, I don't know, let's go find out. But growth and comfort can't live together. Like they just can't. You have to push that envelope.
Yeah. What have you learned about leadership like early in your career that you still apply today?
I think for me, it's, well, one, the biggest thing is work ethic. I think that is, I still very much believe that, you need to be efficient, but like the leaders are the ones that are working after hours and checking in on people and like making sure that we're doing the right thing, even when skipping that step is easier, but taking the harder path because it's the right path, that takes work ethic. And that's what I really feel like was ingrained in me in a young age, has continued to be ingrained with me as I've grown up with APS, and is a big part of at least my success so far. And the other thing is that always learning and building that network of people that, I might not know the answer. A lot of times I probably don't know the answer, but knowing who I can go to for the answer or who I can go to get counsel or what questions to ask is really a key part of, I think, foundational how you get good at your job and then how you get good at your career. A board of directors, if you will.
I actually heard an entrepreneur talk about that recently too. It's like when he wants to move into a new space or learn something, anything, one of his first questions to himself is like, who out there is the best in this space or doing it at the highest level? And do I have access to them or could I get access to them? And he starts like, he's at a high level so he can reach the high level people, but like, then who do you know that, might be within your reach or within your network that you could build a relationship to or with that could build that little tribe of mentors. Yeah. That's huge. We actually talked about that as it's good for apprentices as well to start doing like while they're an apprentice, because we talked about, then becoming a leader a few years down the road. Like if you find yourself in a leadership position now with nobody to consult because you burned bridges or you didn't build a network, you're going to have a difficult time doing that. Yeah,
that's huge, especially if you're going to move up in the same organization, is recognizing that, you're going to be working, like, don't poo-poo anybody because you're going to be working for them or with them at some point in your career. And so, making sure that you're showing up genuine and you're doing the right thing is huge, because everybody can tell when a leader's just phoning it in or just checking the box.
Yeah.
That's super obvious. And nobody likes a leader that does that.
One of my first foremen was not very pleasant to be around for a while. And I think he was giving me it was the first year and a half, but I think he was also like, looking back at it now, I think he was like really testing me to see if it was like actually legit something I wanted to do, or if I just took it because my dad owned a company and I could get into an apprenticeship. Right. He was kind of testing that way, but at some point in time, within a year and a half, he flipped from that kind of like ignorant yeller screamer type to a coach mentor. Yeah. And it's a good thing he flipped because like, I don't know, 3 years after I became a lineman, I ended up his foreman. And I was just like a good dichotomy. It's like, it's a good thing you flipped into like somebody I actually respected later, not that other person, that other version of you, because I would have treated you a lot different.
Yeah. But you proved to him that you were in it for the right reasons and you were smart enough to figure it out. Yeah. I mean, I've worked with some really tough bosses. Yeah. and some that were hard on me. But I always recognized, and it's probably because my dad was very similar, the ones that are hardest on you are usually the ones that know what you're capable of. And so, if you approach it as that way, like they're really trying to like get it out of me, then I think that makes you appreciate them more, and it makes it so that you can take those lessons learned from them. Doesn't mean you have to act that way going forward. I think also recognizing that what works for me is not going to work for maybe the people that work for me. But I do think especially hard bosses or ones that can be a little gruff are trying to push you and get you where you need to be, even if you don't know that.
On that then, what is some more advice you have for that person that was you at 22 to like 28, trying to work through the beginning part of your career, but that there's some leadership skills in you and you kind of like know where you want to go, but you're working with people that, like you got to get through these tough things. You got to get through those tough bosses. What's some advice for that person?
I don't know, as I was like, when I look back, my career path makes total sense and it looks like I had a plan. But going through it, I had no plan. And I actually bid 8 leader jobs and interviewed for 8 leader jobs and didn't get any of them before I got my first one. And I could have easily been like, I guess leadership's not for me. I'll just stick with what I'm doing. But that would have been the easy way out. And I think the best advice that I can give to people is if there's something that's driving you nuts or there's something that's super challenging, lean into that. Like that's going to be the path that's going to make the most impact and help you grow the most and is going to get you to eventually where you're going to go. And where you're going to go and how you're going to get there is going to look different for everyone. And so thinking, I get a lot of questions from folks that are like, well, what's the career path and how do I like, and I'm like, I don't know.
The ladder, what does the ladder look like?
I'm like, I don't know. I just keep finding problems and fixing problems and leaning into things that I'm like, this sucks. How can I make it better? And I think that's the thing that I would tell that generation and the younger generation coming up is like, find something that drives you nuts and lean into that and fix it good. And that's a better resume than any job title.
I've heard people say that as well when they're interviewing these people that, especially like entrepreneurs or business owners that understand what it takes to do the job. When they're going to interview people, a lot of them say now, like, we really don't care about your credentials, like your certifications, your paper. It's like they ask, like, what problem have you come across that you solved? Like, what was that problem and how did you solve it? And give me multiples of those. And okay, I know that you can actually take on a problem and you can solve a problem. You're in. Like, oftentimes they don't even care. Or it's like, another question is like, what have you built? That's a better question for a resume. So like on the interviewing side of things, because I know it's like, you interview for an organization, they like the credentials and the things like that. When it comes to the interview side, do you have any advice for, the person that's interviewing?
Yeah, it's different if you're external or internal to the culture. I think, if you're external and you're interviewing, then the interview matters a lot more, right? And so you need to prepare and you need to think about, what your answers are. I think internally, every day is an interview, and how you show up every day matters, and the interview is just the icing on the cake. That's just your opportunity to sell yourself. But in general, in an interview, worry less about the questions and how you're answering them, and think about, am I answering the question based on the job I'm in now, or am I answering the question for how I would perform in that role? Because remember, you're interviewing for a role at the end of the day, and you're going to have to show up and do that job every single day. And so answering those questions as if you were in that role and how you would react makes a huge difference. And, we use behavioral-based interviews or tell me about a time, blah, blah, blah. And so you're using examples from your previous life, but it's fine to say, here's how I approached it based on the role I was in. But in this role, I would tweak it to do X, Y, and Z. You're still sharing your experience and what you did, but you're also then showing that person when the hiring leader leaves, they're like, I know exactly what I'm getting. They walked me through how they were going to show up in this role. That's a no-brainer. And I think people get so nervous and they get so worried about answering the exact questions. And it's more important to show that you're the best person for that role. And here's what you're going to get if you hire me.
What's the hardest lesson you've learned in leadership lately?
That's a good question. I think the hardest lesson is you're not gonna win everybody over. I think that's the hardest thing in general, is that,
especially if you're like a people pleaser.
Yeah, or an eldest daughter. And there's, I think that's always hard, is that not everybody's gonna like what you're doing, and you're not gonna reach everybody. And some people are gonna make different decisions, and you're gonna have to hold them accountable, and that sucks.
How do you overcome that feeling?
I don't know that you do. I mean, I've had to have some really difficult conversations about people's development. I've had to terminate a lot of people in my career, and every single one of them hurts. And every single one of them, I'm like, is there something I could have done differently? Is there a different culture that I could have created? So I don't know that you ever get over it. I think that you can approach it with the right context and support. Like, you don't have to be mean about it. You can give harsh feedback, and you don't have to be cruel. You can terminate someone, and you don't have to make them feel like they suck. And I think if I know that I've approached them as a human and as I would want to be approached in the situation, then that makes me feel a little better about it. But every single one hurts, because you want people, especially, you don't get into leadership if you don't want people to be successful, and if you don't want to see people grow and develop. That's why I got into leadership. And so being in a situation where you recognize there's nothing else I can do, or this person made a decision that they can't come back from, that's the best thing I can do, is approach them as a human and say, sorry.
Love that.
It's not working out.
Approach them as a human.
Yeah.
Remember that we are human.
Yeah.
As a female in a male-dominated industry, what's your advice to females kind of wanting to get into an industry like this?
Yeah, I was just part of a Move Over Bob, which is a group.
That's awesome. What a name. I love that.
Yeah, they're trying to
Bob.
get, Bob the Builder, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to get women into the construction industry. And I was just part of a panel for them. And they were talking about only 5% of the construction industry is women today. And it only jumps up to about 12% when you include engineers and project managers. And so I often don't think about it because I've been in the industry so long. But as you look broader, it really still is very much a minority within the industry. But at the end of the day, I may look different, may show up differently. I think the best advice I can give is be genuine and true to yourself. Because if you're trying to be one of the guys or act like one of the guys, like, it's super obvious, and nobody's going to respect that. But people respect individuality. And I also think making sure that, nothing's beneath you. I'm not capable of doing a lot of the things that the guys do in the field, but I'm capable of standing there and asking them questions, and I'm capable of understanding where they're coming from. And I'm happy to be out there and like, show me more, tell me more. And I think that gets a level of respect regardless of male or female.
You talk about questions. I'm curious because I'm like a collector of questions. Mm-hmm. What kind of questions did they ask on a panel like that?
It was to a bunch of high school students.
Okay.
And so a lot of the questions were, how did you even learn about the industry? Mm-hmm. What challenges do you see? Even what does your day look like, right? Because it's so unknown. And you reach out to a bunch of high school students and I tell them I get up at 4:30 in the morning and they're like, wait, what? And so, like even walking them through like, yeah, but most people in the industry, not me, but most people in the industry are then off by 2:30 and you have your whole afternoon, right? And so like even walking them through, like, I think, you were fortunate to have your dad's example. I was fortunate to see what it took from my dad, right? Every storm, he'd be gone. He'd be in the operations center. And so like I knew what it took. A lot of folks out there and a lot of the folks on the panel, they don't even know. And so I think the biggest question is like, walk me through your day. And even that, like, they're like, oh, that's not what I thought. I can do that. Or to your point, like, try it. We had them come up and there was a female electrician there that was, teaching them how to bend pipe. And so we had them come up and try it. And it was, I think people don't go to positions until they can see themselves in those roles. Yeah. And they can see themselves. And that's part of the barrier to getting women into the industry in general is like, well, I can't be a lineman. There's no female lineman. And they can't see themselves there because they haven't seen a visual of what that looks like. Yeah. And so I think at the very minimum, it's walking through like, well, here's what it could look like. Your podcast has done a great day. I listened to the Mackenzie Gillian's episode and I had no idea. I'm like,
she's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was dropping bombs too. Like I was asking her, like, how did you set yourself apart? Like, she's like, I just would do the things that nobody else was willing to do. And I was like, okay, explain that. She's like, well, when we go through a day of apprenticeship school or class and everyone goes out after, at the end of the day, I would go home, I would get dressed, I would take the train to the city and I would find an event and start networking.
Right.
And, when I left my pre-app school, I had 5 contacts that I could go to and be like, hey, could you help me get in? And I had an apprenticeship right away.
Yeah.
Whereas all the other guys were just sitting there trying to figure out how to get in an apprenticeship after pre-app school. I had already had that lined up. I was like, man, more people need to hear. This is why I'm a big fan of like this and social media and like trying to get that message out there because there are a lot of amazing females in the industry. I've had Kane on the show before. Kane's from the East Coast of Canada. She's working in Australia right now on a massive transmission project. She just got back from Italy. Yeah. She goes from Australia, or days off, goes to Italy, comes back. She's doing it like right up there with the guys. You see it on our Instagram stories all the time. Like, I wish you'd put that out there more for more people to see because it is totally possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
are we doing to reach people? Like reach kids? Like you talked about that panel. Are you guys doing other things to help like get the message out to the youth that it's an option?
Yeah. One of the great things about APS is that we are a single state utility. And so we're all in it for Arizona.
Cool.
And we have a number of docks across the state that are ingrained with our community. So like we partner with, I worked in Prescott and over northern Arizona for a large part of my career. And we partner with the line college at Yavapai College up there. And, we'll take, sometimes when their instructors go on PTO, we'll take the kids around and show them a substation and walk them through that, and show them our trucks and what that looks like. We also partner in a lot of these rural communities with the high schools, giving them another option outside of college or outside of the industries. There's not a lot of industries in some of these small towns, and APS is usually one of the best paying gigs and the best gig in town. And so showing them, like, you don't have to leave Douglas, Arizona to be a lineman in Douglas, Arizona. Like, we'll train you and we'll pay you to get the training, and you'll have to travel for a couple of years because we want to get you a good, well-rounded apprenticeship. But you can go back home and enjoy that. And so we partner a lot with high schools, with the local colleges, community colleges, like trying to get the word out about this is a great industry and here's what we can do. And then I think our apprenticeship, we have a really high rate of people that apply for our apprenticeship. And so we've done a good job of getting out there and partnering and making sure that the word is getting out. So what do you think the barriers are then? If the industry's changing and it's obviously acceptable now to be female and be in the industry, then what are the barriers like of entry, and why are there not more? Or I guess where I'm leading to is like, what can we do better? Well, I think what you're doing to get the word out, I really believe one of the biggest barriers is the visibility of that women can even do this. I think the other barrier is just a barrier to the trades in general is that how we're raising our kids is different now. My husband's a very handy guy. He can fix anything. He grew up fixing cars and everything with his dad. My dad was very handy, but a lot of people my generation are not. They don't know how to fix anything. They don't have a set of tools at home. That isn't something that comes natural. And, you have a flat tire on the side of the road, you call AAA. Yeah. There's no way. My dad never would have let me drive a car if I didn't know how to change a tire. Now, I don't want to change a tire, but I know how. Yeah. If I had to, I would. And I don't know that I don't think there's enough emphasis at in the school curriculum and in the parenting. I mean, I've got 2 young kids myself. Yeah. And it's really easy to just let them play video games and let them do that. And it's a struggle to say, go outside. I don't want to see you for 2 hours. Your iPad is taken away for the rest of the day. And, they kick and fight and scream and don't like that. And it's like, then they come in and they're like, it was the best. I had so much fun. I found 5 rocks and a snake and it was so cool. And I'm like, good. Okay, we're going to do that again tomorrow, and letting them be bored so that they have to figure out how to do stuff with their hands. Like, I think it starts really young. Yeah. And I haven't seen it from I think it's getting less and less. And I think that's how we get men, women, all of the above more involved in the trades. Because, college is a good path for certain people. For sure. But at the end of the day, college doesn't teach you a career. College teaches you how to think. That's it. Yeah. And so the trades give you a career. They give you a path that you can always go back to. But you have to have the right foundation to be successful in either college or in the trades. Mm-hmm. And I think it starts with parenting.
That's so true. I remember Mom getting pissed off at us because we had the very first Nintendo ever made, and brother and I would start fighting, over something stupid that we were playing. She's like, that's it. That's enough. I'm like, Mom, we've been on it for like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's enough. You're fighting already. Get outside. She would lock the door on us, kick us outside. There's we had nothing to do. So we'd steal my dad's brand new flat of 2x6s and we'd build a tree fort with this brand new flat. he wasn't happy, but then he was also happy. He's like,
yeah.
okay, they built something. It's kind of cool, but they wrecked all my new 2x6. But yeah, 100%. I think you're right on that.
Yeah. My daughter is 11 and she is a mini parent to my 8-year-old son. And so she always, if he's on the computer too long, she's like, go outside, touch grass. And he's like, wait. And I'm like, no, she's right. Go outside, touch
Can't
grass.
argue with that. She's passing on what she was told.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One more question for you. What best piece of advice you could leave for this next generation?
Best piece. I think the best piece of advice that I could leave is the power of show me. I just think maintaining that curiosity. I think a lot of what I've seen in some of this generation is I know about that. I've seen that once. I saw that on TV. And I believe that if more people took the time to say, I don't know, show me, we'd all be better and we'd all learn more and we'd all have more progressive dialogues and we'd all be, better off for it if we all kind of looked at it as, show me, I don't know, or I don't know all the details, tell me more about it. And I think that's going to be the difference going forward, because we're going to lose a lot of things in the future if we don't take the time to figure it out. If we just let AI figure it out, like seeing the movie Idiocracy, I could see what the future looks like if we don't take the time to stop it and to make sure that we're using it in a appropriate manner and we're putting the right guardrails and we don't lose the foundation of like getting out there and doing something.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
This content is completely free. All right. The only thing I'm asking you for is to hit that subscribe button. And I know it's cheesy. I know it's corny. I know every YouTuber asks you to hit that button and you're probably sick and tired of it. But if you like the show and you want to see the show grow, this is the way I prove to the people in charge that it's worth investing in. So it's pretty simple and it's the price you can pay for me. It's no money. It's just a subscribe. Please hit the subscribe and I appreciate the heck out of you for it.